Hey YouTube, it's PB. Thanks for tuning in to another video, Life of a Jobbing Plumber. Got another good week variation of jobs for you to look at, and then something a little bit different off of Instagram. It's a kind of soldering pipe swaging tutorial. We'll see how that goes down, and whether I continue with that, we'll see what people say. But yeah, I've got a good variation of jobs for you. Although it's been a bit weird, the last couple of weeks it's been so hot, and obviously the World Cup's on. I've been trying to watch as many games as I can, which is the beauty of being self-employed. If you want to take a couple of hours off to watch a football match, you know, World Cup's only once every 4 years. You can do that. If you have to work a little bit harder at the weekends to make up for it, then you can do. It's one of the things I like about being self-employed. But yeah, it's been tough working in roof spaces. You go in there, instantly you're dripping with sweat. It can be really stressful, but yeah, I've had plenty on. People say plumbers, summer is the time of year when you've not got much work on, but I never find that. It's busy all the way through. Obviously in the winter you got the boiler breakdowns and things, so it is really busy, but it doesn't seem to sort of go quiet in the summer. I don't know if that's one of these urban myths, or if that traditionally used to be what it was like, but yeah, busy all the way through. So yeah, plenty for this week's video. Hopefully you'll enjoy it, and I will see you on the next one. Right, I've got a little bit of an electrical fault finding type job. So I've been called out to this with no hot water. Now we've got two issues here. We're going to look at this next. This is the expansion vessel, which I've said before, this should be full of air and I should be able to lift it easily. That's failed, it's completely full of water. So we're going to renew this. But they've got no hot water. Now, you can see here, we can select continuous, although I've got it on extra hour anyway. So I'm calling for hot water on the programmer, but the hot water zone valve isn't opening. I've got the temperature right up on this cylinder stat. I've tried it up and down. So the first thing I would check, these have got a reset on just to see if it's tripped out. If it's overheated, you can reset it, but it's not. So obviously I'm not an electrician, I'm a plumber. If you're not competent to work on electrical installations, then seek professional advice or get an electrician in. But I do a bit of fault finding on plumbing stuff. We're not going to be altering anything, just having a look to see what the problem is. So the first thing I'll do is, now bearing in mind, don't copy anything I'm doing, the power is actually on at the minute. But this is the way I would fault find this. So we've got here, this is your thermostat and this is your overheat cutout. So your live switch live comes in, goes through the thermostat if it's calling, and then goes on this black wire into the overheat stat before it goes back down on this blue wire here to open the valve to fire the boiler up. So if you've got demand on here, you've got 240 on here, and this is calling, it then goes through. If there was an issue, it stops here. If there's not, it allows it to go on. So that's its sort of safety device built in there. You've got two probes here, thermostat probe and overheat probe, both go into this through the connection there at the back. So the first thing I'm going to check, because I've got no heat, let me just pop this in here. I've ordered, you'll be pleased to know, a chest mount for my phone so I can do things with two hands. So basically we're going to check if we've got any voltage on the switch live. So that straight away tells me it's the programmer that's the fault, because I've not got 240 volts on my switch live there, which means this isn't sending the power down where it should. So now we know that's okay. We follow it back up and we're going to look at this. So we know there's power to it because it's on. So we've got 240 there. I'm struggling to film this with one hand, but basically we've got power here on the live. So this is the switch live down, which should be going to our cylinder stat. So what I'm going to do is just link the lives across and then see if that powers up the cylinder stat. So I'll do that now. I always carry in the top of my electrical box just some little offcuts of cable I can use for fault finding. So I'll just connect this in now. Okay, so with the power off, you see what I've done there? I've put a link in between the live and number 4, which is the switch live, down to the component. Now if you're not sure, don't ever put a link from a live into another cable unless you know what it is. On a program, on a backplate, if you take the program off and have a look, you can see here, it gives you a brief diagram of what it is. So we know that our hot water on is number 4, which is that one there. So I know I'm right on that. So now what should happen is, if I put the power on with that link, the start should get the voltage. Okay, the pumps go in. 2 ports opened, pumps come on. So just by tracing back, starting there, because that's the sort of last thing, the first thing you check. Follow it back to the programmer. We've linked that out. All we've done there is bypass. That's doing the exact same job your programmer would. All it does is moves the voltage onto the switch live when it's calling for it. So we've linked that out and now it's working. So we know the fault is this. I hope that made sense. As I say, I'm not an electrician, but you do, in our trades, you have to do basic fault finding. They could have called an electrician in, but it was no hot water, so you call a plumber. So we'll go down the merchants and get a new one of these. Well, first of all, we'll quote for a new one of these. But so Ben took the old one to the merchants. Well, I rang them up with the serial number there, or the model number, and they still make it. And then what you'll find is on some programmers it'll be replaced by a different code, or it will say suitable to replace this, and there'll be a list of codes, especially on Universal. Now the good thing about this is it shares the same backplate because it's the same programmer, so we don't have to do any additional work other than get the new programmer and clip it onto the backplate. The thing that will take the time is reprogramming it, because we've got to set up the times. You do get default factory set times, which I probably will leave on because this is rented and the tenant's not in. But yeah, pretty simple. If you can get a straight swap on a programmer, it's not much work at all. That's it, job done. I've broke the cover already. Okay, so now we're going to tackle this bad boy. So I've isolated the cold water supply. That's going to kill the water feeding the cylinder, and it should drain us down when we open the tap to about there. So we put our hose on, open the drain cart, because we want the water level to be somewhere lower than the bit we're working on. So I've just got a 13mm socket on my ratchet there with the extension bar in, just so I can reach into that nut. And I'm very carefully going to do this. I can't film it because this is so heavy, it's so full of water. I need both my hands. So you can see there all this water coming out. There shouldn't really be any water in this at all, and it's completely full. And you can see the little black bits. They're probably pieces of rubber where the membranes failed, perforated, whatever inside. Normally it's half air, and the bottom half is to let the expansion of water come into the expansion vessel, but this is totally failed. So you can see there, I've took the flexible connector out and put the compression fitting in, so we can come off in 22mm copper pipe, and then all the way onto that. The rigid pipework will hold this up. So you can see that's the new expansion vessel. Flexi's gone. We've got rigid copper pipework there, which is better than a flexi because it's got a larger waterway on the inside. It's not restricted, and also because it's rigid, it helps to hold the expansion vessel up, especially when you get issues where they get water in them. Just show you there, the water's all back on, it's working. Yeah, not a bad little job. So this job has been called out to a leak. Got damp wall here. It's pressurised system, so the system's losing pressure, hence the boiler's not working. Now this is the top floor, so I'm guessing there's going to be an elbow on here on this pipe. Now when I looked at this, this is completely dry. So we guess the water's coming from behind the plasterboard. So what I'm going to do is make a really neat, or try and make a neat square around this, so we can access it to make the repair. And then what I normally do is tell the letting agency they'll need to get a plasterer in or handyman to make good. I don't do stuff like that. I could do it, but I'd have to have more kit on the van. I've not got enough room for plumbing stuff as it is, so there's no way I can keep stuff to do, you know, plasterboarding and general repairs. So I just quote for the repair, and then they'll have to get someone else in to make good. So I've cut a square out so I can work on it, and you can see there, this Hep2O fitting, is it? I don't use this grey stuff, Hepworth or something. It's completely undone itself. So, let's move that way. See there, pop that off. It's completely undone itself, no wonder it's leaking. So I'll take this out and have a look at it. I might be able to tighten that back on without having to actually go and fetch anything. But we'll see. But yeah, it's really strange. What can happen is when plastic gets hot and then cold, then hot, then cold, it moves. And that tiny little movement can be enough for things to just undo themselves. So I'm going to have a look at repairing this now. So I've removed the pipe. You can see there was enough play on this, so I've pulled it out of it, which means I can work on this a bit better rather than it being tight down here. And then just to confirm, undo this one, the side that was good, and just check how it goes together. So we've got the O-ring and the clip, and they just push on. So I'm pretty sure we can just put this all back together and then we'll test it. Yeah, it's just repressurising the system now. When this is full, we'll just check the joint. Just a quick demo of my Momotaro angle grinder. So the first thing to notice is the battery pack can swivel to help you get into hard to reach spots. And like with all the Momotaro gear, you can swap the batteries. All the different battery packs fit all the tools. It's also got this quick release to change the cutting discs. So no tool required for that. You can quickly change the guard just by using that. And then we've got a fast brake. When you turn it off, it stops within 2 seconds. So I'm here doing a landlord gas safety check, and one of the things we check for is the emergency controls accessible. So if in the event of a gas escape you need to turn your meter off, you should be able to put your hand on the gas tap and turn it off. Yeah, so it's labelled there. Kitchen fitter's made a nice, say nice, hole in the side of the cupboard, but this is the front of the cupboard. Now my arms are pretty long. If you can see that, I can just get my arm to the hole, but I can't get it down as well. So there's no way I can reach that gas tap to turn it off. Where is it? I can't even see it. It's down. It's on the back of that pipe. So let's see if I can reach it now. Now I know where it is, I can see it. But I can just about put my finger on it. So that's not good enough for me. So I need to make a phone call now to the letting agency. See what I want to do. Really, we need to get someone to cut the, probably get rid of this shelf, cut that complete side of the cupboard out. So I've been called out to this boiler for a leak on the boiler. It's a Glowworm 30 CI, and I just thought I'd share with you a couple of things about this boiler. So the first thing to notice on this, most glowworms and Valent boilers, you'll need a Torx 2.0 head to remove the front cover cases and work on a lot of the components inside. So that's the first tip. Now, this made me laugh, the technical numbers written on the inside. Now, they're not the worst boiler, they're not the best boiler. I don't mind working on these. They do seem a bit complicated, but there are worse boilers to work on. So we're looking at here is a leak from the boiler. Now, I know what this is. The tenant's tried to top the pressure up and it's leaked from this part here. This is the sort of check valve, non-return valve on the filling link, which is this blue knob here. Now, this piece is an extension piece, so you can turn it from lower down. Might be missing on the one you're working on. If it is, it's just this tap here, but that's all this does. It's just an extension piece. You can pull it off. Sometimes you can't turn these and they'll squeeze, but when you fill the boiler, this open end here is the gap between the two check valves. Any water that's trapped between the two can drip out, and it can also drip while you're filling it. So if you're filling it for the first time and it starts pissing water out, don't stress, just put a bowl under it. It's meant to do that. Don't know why it's been designed like that, but it has. So that's a sort of air gap between the two check valves, and it will drip sometimes. So if you get called out to a leaking boiler on one of these, just make sure that it wasn't that when the tenants top the pressure up. I'm trying my best to make this one drip, but it's not having it today. But that is what will happen. You can see it there from the underside, just there. That's where it will drip from. So that's that. The other thing on these boilers, make your customers aware, now this doesn't happen all the time. When you turn the power off from this knob here, sometimes it can kill the board. So if I was you and you're working on one of these, just explain to your customer, this is a known issue with these. If I turn it off and this happens, it's not my fault. And just prepare them for it before you work on it, just in case that happens. So any of you guys that follow me on Instagram will hopefully have seen Instagram TV. So it's a new format where you can post 10-minute videos, kind of like a YouTube, but for Instagram. So I've done something on there. I've done 3 videos now. Did a soldering tutorial, and then a little sort of mini look at the Riemann Tools Tapex kit, which a lot of you have asked me to do a review on. So I thought I'd try one here now. Now the only issue with it is you have to film with your phone in portrait, and on YouTube I do my stuff in landscape because you get a better outcome with the editing. With it being landscape, it's going to shrink it down into the middle of the screen. So I thought I'd try out one on here because I'm so busy with work, filming something twice, and I did try setting up one camera landscape, one portrait, but because I'm looking at the portrait one, it seems weird to me that I'm not actually looking at the camera. So I thought I'd try this one today. This is the soldering tutorial I did. It's a quick look at how I solder and also swaging a pipe. So I'm going to put it on now, have a watch of it. It's just under 10 minutes long. If you can get on with the format, if you think the format's okay, then I'll stick the other videos I do for Instagram into my Life of a Job in Plumber videos, because like I say, I've got a mini review of the Riemann Tools Tapex kit, which a lot of you wanted to see. So have a watch of this. If you think it's okay, just let me know in the comments. If you don't like it, just say no, and I'll have to film them independently for YouTube. But let's see how we get on. Hi Instagram, it's PB. So this new feature called Instagram TV, I'm trying it out. I'm going to call it PB TV, and I thought I'd start off with a video about soldering. Now you get 10 minutes, so I'm going to try and cram as much in as I can. Now I get a lot of messages on Instagram and Twitter about how I get my soldering so neat, and the truth is I learn off other people on social media. So before I came on social media, my soldering was good, didn't leak, but when I've seen people like Tony Dumble, Unequaled Heating, Jamie Wild, a guy called Dennis Hollingworth on Twitter, when I've seen their work and how good it is, how great it looks, I've tried to imitate that, and I've picked up some tips from them along the way. Now I'm not a plumbing teacher, I'm just a plumber like you, but I'll just show you what I do, and hopefully if you take anything from it, then that's all well and good. So the most important thing about soldering is it doesn't leak. That's it. If you can do that, you can solder. Once you've mastered that and you're happy, you're confident with your soldering, then you can start to try and make it look better, which is what I've done. Not the best. I can't get it anywhere near Tony Dumble's work. When I first started, I thought, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. I'm not even going to try. But the more you do it, the more you practice, the better you get. And that's the most important thing. And also, you can only do your best. So it doesn't matter what anyone else is doing, as long as you're proud of what you do and you do the best you can do, that's good enough for me. So we'll start off, we'll just talk about soldering. So when I learned from a guy called Kev, and obviously at college, because I did a day release apprenticeship. So the first thing I do is I clean the pipe. Can either use these cleaning strips, or if you've got a tool like this, or this one's really knackered, you can clean the pipe with there, or some good old-fashioned steel wool. So I clean the pipe. Let's pop that in the vise. Clean the other piece of pipe. Now here's a little tip for you. Little things that set you out from other plumbers. So we've cut this with a pipe slice. So on the inside of the pipe, there's a little bit of a burr on the pipe. You can just catch your finger on it. So just get yourself one of these. You don't have to get a backhoe one, but this is a Riemann tool. Just pop it in the pipe, spin it round, and that cuts off that burring on the inside of the pipe. And that's just the kind of little attention to detail that will set you out from other people. So now we've got nothing there to restrict the flow. You can do that on any pipe you're doing. Just give it a quick whip round with that, and it deburrs the pipe. Little backhoe. This is a little backhoe pen. Really handy bit of kit. So clean both ends of the pipe. Then I clean inside the fitting. Even if it's brand new, force of habit, I always clean the fitting and the pipe. Now we'll talk about flux. So I use power flow flux, always have, because I learnt off Kev. Depends who you're learning from. You might then work with another trade and they'll say, oh, I use Laco, it's better, or I've got a fluctuator, I've got this Copalux flux, it's the bee's knees. Use what works for you, basically. I grew up on power flow, so I'm happy with power flow. I really like this stuff you get in the fluctuators. I use that a lot. But for the purpose of this demo, we'll use, because a lot of you won't have a fluctuator, we'll use a brush. So, really fine coating on the end of the pipe. Get it all the way around. You don't need too much. Now, the way I learnt to solder, Kev used to get his solder wire, dip it into the flux like that, and into the fitting. Just give it a whip round like that. Now, there's two issues with this. So you can see there's quite a lot of flux inside that fitting now. When you push the pipe into the fitting, give it a twist, you can probably see, is it that bad? Well, there's a tiny bit's gone inside the pipe, and that's why they say don't flux your fittings, because if you put a load of flux in there and push it in, it goes inside the pipe. If there's a gas pipe that you're not going to flush out with water, that flux is going to stay in there and it's going to attack the pipe. But if you do want to flux inside your fitting, and I'm not saying you shouldn't or you should, I'm just talking about it. If you are going to flux inside your fitting, use a brush and a very, very thin coating on the inside of the fitting, so there's no big lumps of it, because you don't need much at all. And then, let's just clean that out. If there's hardly any in there, when you turn it on, there's not going to be any to go inside the pipe. I've got a bit there. So we're talking, you don't need flux inside the fitting, but real world situations, I don't know, it's a really awkward joint to get to, it's late, you need to get done and get home, you've got to get the water back on, the customer's chasing you, you want to make sure it goes first time. You might want to put some flux in your fitting, or you might already do that, you might have grown up doing that. So I'm not telling you it's right or wrong, but just be careful how much flux you put in if you're going to flux the fitting. So that's that done, give it a twist, ready to solder. Now what I always do is wipe any excess off. If you don't wipe any excess off and it runs down the pipe or down the fitting, your solder is going to be inclined to follow it, and that's when you get runs. So we clean it off before we start to solder. Now I'm just going to bring you in a bit closer. So if we imagine when the job's finished, this is the side of the pipe we're going to be looking at. So what I'll do is I'll touch my solder from the opposite side, or from underneath where you're not going to see it. The other thing I do is I move the heat around. Don't just concentrate on one spot. And I always start at the bottom. I don't know whether it's because heat rises or what, but in my head, I mean, it all depends on the way you're soldering, the location at the time, but I tend to always start at the bottom. Okay, so I'm happy that that solder's ran. Now, I won't touch this now. I'll let this cool down naturally, but you'll see some people will put flux on the top. Now, what that's done there, if you can see that on the top, you can just see if it's ran. So if you just want to check that it's actually ran and you can't see because of the way you've done it, a little bit of flux on top can help you identify that it's ran. But what you've definitely got to do is clean that off afterwards, because your pipe will go green if you leave it. So I'm going to leave that to cool down now, then we'll clean it up and have a look at it. But what we're on now, 7 minutes 50, so I'm going to quickly show you about swaging a pipe. So a lot of people ask me about pipe swaging. That's a socket I've formed in the end of a 15mm pipe, so you can easily join pipes together. And the difference between a normal socket on a pipe is we've only got one joint to solder there, and it's going to be on the upright, so it makes it a lot easier to solder verticals. So the way we make one of those is you need the factory end of the pipe, or you need to cut it with a hacksaw. If you've used a pipe slice, then you're definitely going to need to use this Riemann tool, because you struggle to get your swaging tool in. So this is a socket former swaging tool, and basically it goes in the end of the pipe like that, and then we hammer it in to form a socket. You can see there it's just starting to open out the end of the pipe. That's done. Whip that out. You can see there we formed a socket on the end of the pipe, which we can then solder, and it looks really, really neat. You'll notice I did that on 15mm. 22mm it's a lot harder. So when your pipes cool down, with a wet rag, just give it a wipe, and then don't need brasso, don't need anything like that, just some nice fine steel wool. And you can really go to town on this. If you want to, just give it a wipe, get the excess flux off. But if you really want to make it stand out and look good, fine grade steel wool. I'm doing this really quick because we're running out of time. See if you can see this now. So that's a perfectly soldered pipe. I can promise you the solder's ran, and then on the other side that we're not going to see, you can just see there, that's where I touched the solder on. But that's the side we're not going to see. Okay, hope you found this video helpful. I'm going to do some more like this on tools, tool bags, things like that. Yeah, check them out, PBTV on Instagram. Hey guys, PB, would you rather Wednesday? Late start or late finish? So, you've got a job, you need to smash it out in a day, so you get there nice and early. You've got it all planned out in your head, how the day's going to go, how you're going to get it done, and then it goes wrong from the off. You can't find the stop tap to turn the water off, or there's no drain cocks on the whole system and you can't drain down. You spend the first hour, maybe more, messing about just trying to get it drained down so you can start doing some actual work. Or late finish. The job's gone absolutely smoothly, the customer's been out all day, so you've been left on your own to crack on. It's all finished, it's all gone well, you've commissioned it, you've packed your kit away. Just then the customer walks through the door. One of your joints, and not the one that you thought, oh that's a bit iffy, it might not work, just a regular elbow that you didn't even think about it, starts pissing out, makes you look like a complete amateur, and you've got to get all your kit off your van again. What would you rather do?